Welcome to Darby and Friends on 1490 WGCH. My voice sounds very soft to me today. Does it sound soft to you? Oh, I'm up full blast because it's Monday and I'm so happy to be here with all of you. But I have a really busy schedule today. I have Michael Harmann, who is with Adolescent Behavioral Consulting, and a fascinating topic about how we can help our young people as parents, and I would think probably grandparents as well if you have a young child in your family who might need the aid and the help of someone who isn't a family member, who can be non-threatening and neutral. This is going to be a very interesting segment in the first part of our show. I'm really interested tonight in talking and sharing this wonderful information from Michael Harmann. And the Adolescent Behavior Consulting is your business, is that correct?
Yes.
Right. And it's a very interesting profile that they do on you, that you talk about how you can help both the children, the adolescents, and the parents, which I find very unique, and dealing with the challenges from drug abuse, sexual behavior, and breaking the law to something as simple as disrespecting teachers and parents, or failing in school, or using poor judgment. How did you get interested in developing this program?
Well, I've been doing this work for years, and I started the Greenfield Lodge in Los Angeles, California in '06, and I started working a lot with families and adolescents, and just started to learn about some of the deeper issues that afflict families, and started to see how powerless the parents felt, which was interesting to me, that the subjective perspective that they were coming from, they really didn't see their power, and the adolescent was running the show. And as much as the adolescent was fighting to run the show, it was obvious to me that they really didn't want to be running the show. What they wanted was somebody to come in and say, no, this is too far here, or you've gone too far here, and set some boundaries. And so what I started to do was coach parents and teach parents where they had power and how to assert that power and regain control over their teenager or young adult.
Well, that sounds like that could be very challenging to do that.
It is. It is challenging. It's a volatile population. It's not like math. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. But what I found is I'm trained as a therapist. I have my MSW. But there's no way I could get at the problem behind my desk an hour a week or 2 hours a week. I think it would be arrogant of anybody to think that they're that good. What I found is it takes getting down in the dirt and putting your energy in, rolling up your sleeves, and really spending time with the kid, spending time with the family, involving professionals like therapists, psychiatrists, whoever else, and creating a team that's able to really envelop the situation and deal with the volatility. Oftentimes I think parents, they go into therapy, they have family sessions. The kid might have a therapist that he sees sporadically because usually they don't want to go because there's stigma. And then they're trying to do it on their own. They come home with whatever memory they have from the session, and they're trying to do it on their own, and they're just not equipped to do it. Number one, parents, they hold too much guilt. Everything's their fault. So they're so terrified of screwing their kid up even more than they already have. And then oftentimes when they try to set boundaries, the kid ups the ante, keeps upping the ante. I've dealt with so many kids that at this point, when I reach them, they're threatening suicide.
Wow, that's very heavy.
Absolutely. Well, it's the last thing that they can threaten to maintain the control that they have over the parents emotionally. I'm going to kill myself. That's what they say. And so what happens is the parents are traumatized to really set boundaries and to put their foot down with the kid because they don't want to be responsible for the potentially self-destructive behavior that the kid has proven he's capable of.
And when you say self-destructive behavior, would that be like binge drinking or cutting oneself or piercing, tattooing?
Yeah, well, the piercing, tattooing would be a lesser of what I'm talking about in the moment. Putting your fist through the drywall, hopping in your car and peeling out of the driveway, and the parents are left feeling responsible for the escalation of the argument and wondering, is he going to get into a car accident? What's he going to go do? Is he going to go use drugs? Is he going to go hang out with those kids that I know are horrible influence on him? So it's a tough situation.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Do you find in the population of parents and children, adolescents that you're dealing with, that it's more male or female, or it goes across the board, it doesn't matter?
I think some of the behaviors I was just talking about, the peeling out of the driveway, the hand through the drywall, breaking of furniture, one of the physical stuff, that's more male. With the females, it'll manifest itself differently, definitely in maybe the eating disorders, the cutting, sexual acting out, drug use. Women tend to act more inward, so I think it might be a little bit quieter with a younger girl. Yeah.
Fascinating. And when you meet with a family the first time, are you meeting with just the adults and then you meet with the teenager later, or do you all start together?
No, I start with the parents first and determine, can I work with this family? One of the things that I need from the family is cooperation. I need to know that they're gonna listen to the suggestions and that they're ready to unify. One of the strategies that a kid uses is to split the parents. And so I have to know that it's workable, that they're willing to do the work to come back together and work as a team and defer to me. And then we also have to figure out, what are they prepared to do? Because I need to come into the situation with the teen knowing what the leverage is and what we can pull the trigger on. So, for instance, behavioral boarding school. Can they afford that? Right? Is that something that I'm not going to threaten anything that I can't follow through on? So if I know we can threaten that, what I might have them do is apply for brochures and information to a bunch of tough programs around the country, and then just leave those brochures out around the house without saying anything.
That's a pretty clear message.
Right. So the parents aren't doing what they normally do, which is wait for some impetus or some emotional acting out to engage the kid. They're not saying anything, and they're leaving this around, and the kid sees it and is wondering, what is going on? What's happening? So that's one of the strategies to kind of de-escalate or bring the behaviors down a couple notches so that they think, oh, okay, something's in the works here. My parents are organizing to make a strike, so to speak, against my behavior.
And is it hard to figure out how to match the energy to a situation? Do you find that maybe the mother is more upset? Maybe she's been left to raise the child, and the father, in trying to create the security for the family, is gone all the time, and now all of a sudden she's feeling guilty that something has happened and it's not working out, and then...
Well, the mom's going to blame herself. That's what mothers do.
Yeah.
They blame themselves. Do. Yeah, of course. Of course, you gave birth to this child, and you're responsible for it. The problem is, with a teenager, you can't snatch them up and protect them from danger. They're too big. So absolutely, a lot of the work I do is on the phone with the moms or the dads, and coaching them on when to engage, when to ignore, and saying, objectively, from my perspective here, this isn't for you to own. This is not your fault, and try to explain why I believe that. Or I might say, based on what I see you doing, I can see how this is escalating the situation.
Wow, this is really fascinating, heavy stuff. But I'm so glad that there's a person like Michael Harmann of Adolescent Behavioral Consulting that can help us with young teenagers who might be suffering. And it is a suffering situation when a teenager is acting out.
Michael Harmann, founder of Adolescent Behavioral Consulting and the Greenfield Lodge, received his Master's of Social Work degree from Columbia University. You are invited to join Michael Harmann for his free parenting workshop series in Greenwich and surrounding Fairfield County communities beginning March 18th. The first round of the 2-hour evening workshops will focus on parent-child reciprocal relationships. They'll be presented in group discussion format, moderated by Michael Harmann, who recently launched an innovative new approach to helping parents and their at-risk teens and young adults restore balance to their families. Join Michael Harmann at one of his free parenting workshops in Greenwich or surrounding Fairfield County communities beginning March 18th. Visit www.adolescentbehavioralconsulting.com for locations and registration. That's adolescentbehavioralconsulting.com.
Welcome back to Darby and Friends on 1490 WGCH. And I have the real deal Mike Harmann sitting here with me. He is the head of adolescent behavioral consulting. And I love in some of the information that you gave me that you talk about helping at-risk teens and young adults and parents regain harmony in their individual lives and in their relationships with one another. That is such a gift to give a family and to a young person who's feeling the stress of growing up. It's a very hard thing to do sometimes. Do you think it is environmental? Do you think it's hormonal? Do you think it's what's happened in the way they were raised? What causes a young person to get out of whack?
Well, if I knew the answer to that, I don't know. I'd be a very rich man. I think it's a combination of everything. In terms of parenting styles, in my experience, the most at-risk children I've come across, in my opinion, come from permissive parents.
Permissive parents. Here
Yeah.
they think they're doing the right thing and not putting up too many boundaries, and in fact, the child is really crying out for boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, the parents are not comfortable with setting boundaries, and I think the way that a child understands that is it's as a lack of love. I think a parent communicates love through saying no, as long as the no is not self-serving. And I think that's why parenting is so difficult, to constantly balance your needs as a parent and your own fears, and whether or not to let go and give more freedom, or whether or not to set a boundary and say no. It's a constant dance, and there's no formula, really. You have to go on your gut.
And in your lectures, these are free seminars that you're offering?
Those free seminars, yes.
And parents come as a couple, or they come individually, they come with the children. How is it going to be set up?
No, it's just for the parents.
Just for the parents. Yeah. And then if a chord is struck and someone says, I really feel Michael is someone that I could work with, and you have the same feeling, then you can customize specifically for that family what they need?
Absolutely. It's different for every family. The amount of energy and time we spend is different for every family. The intervention always varies.
That's wonderful. And you got your training at Columbia University?
Yes.
That's great. And do you have some success stories you want to share with us about a child that was basically an at-risk person that you were able to help them and their family and then move forward into having more enriched lives? Don't tell us any names, because obviously
of course
for
not.
privacy.
Well, success is subjective, obviously. A recent client that I was working with, the success was actually asking him to leave his home, which when we started was definitely not the goal, and we would not have thought that was a measure of success. But the kid was 19 years old and had been kicked out of college, and again, threatened suicide a bunch of times, come home drunk, physically abusive to the stepfather, definitely verbally abusive to the mother, so basically an out-of-control situation. I came in, we worked with him for about 90 days, and at the end of 90 days, I determined that we really weren't getting his attention adequately, and he was really just doing the bare minimum to stay in the house, which, let me step back, staying in the house at 19 is a privilege. It's not a right. It's another thing, It's a huge privilege that he had to be able to go into the refrigerator and make himself a sandwich at 19 and have his laundry done and all the things that mom was doing that he was taking for granted. We identified those as privileges, and rather than continue with the case, I decided to ask him to leave. The mom supported it. We asked him to leave. Of course, she's a lot of sleepless nights, worried. And then about a week ago, I get a phone call from the kids saying, I want to come back home. I'll cooperate. So today we sat down with the therapist. All of my clients have to work with a therapist because they need a voice. They need somebody to talk to about their experience with me and my staff. And they need a place where they can have an advocate for themselves. So we sat down with the mother and him and myself today and came up with a contract, a behavioral contract, for him to move back into his house. And, of course, mother's ecstatic. And I think the interesting thing to me is he had options. He had other places he could go. And I think he felt like there was more hope for his future to come back and re-enter into the program with us. I think for the first time in his life, he started to feel like there were boundaries and that there were yes or no answers he was getting, and that if he listened, perhaps he could actuate his full potential and move on. Because I think there's a lot of hopelessness that these kids feel, and it's too early for them to have as much control as they have over their lives when they've overrun the situation. They don't have the life experience. They don't have the self-confidence. They don't have the resources, and here they're running the show. It must be terrifying.
Yes, I would think. Yeah. Tremendously. Now, that's a 19-year-old. What would be the youngest child you would deal with?
That would depend on the case. I've advertised 15 years old, but I would consider younger depending on the situation. Obviously, there's a lot more leverage over younger kids. The 19-year-old can always just say, I'm out of here. But at the same time, it's much more sensitive to deal with a younger kid. And I think it needs to be dealt with very delicately.
Definitely, I would think so. Although I'm often driving on the post road and I see these children coming out of the high school, or I'll be going by one of the private schools. So I'm not saying it's any one particular school. And the girls they can't be more than 12 or 13, 14 tops, and they look like young women. It's most interesting to me, and I'm not saying that any of them have a problem, but it's interesting to me that our culture is encouraging girls who are 12, 13, 14 to be acting like mini women. What happens? I remember the first time I was at a multi-generational event, and there were these little girls that, when I was that age, I would have been in a pastel dress with maybe lace and flowers, and they're all in black. I mean, that's a real significant difference. And wow, people are going to have to come to your seminar because here we are at almost 5:30, and this has been fascinating. Michael, I hope you're going to come back, and I'm very interested to hear what more interesting stories you can tell us about adolescent behavioral consulting that you do. And wonderful. Folks, get to the seminars. Tell us the date and the place for the Greenwich seminar.
I think it's March 18th. Is that right? And it'll be held at the Greenwich Library. But if you go to our website, it'll have that. If you sign up, you'll get the specific time.
Yes, I've got it right here. It's Thursday, March 18th, and it starts at 7 o'clock, and it will go until 9 o'clock, and it's the parenting workshop. And great. Best of luck, and I know you're doing wonderful things with families. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Take care.